Well, good evening, everybody. Welcome to Pitch Perfect. Hope everybody can hear me. My name is Gary Plaag, and I am doing Pitch Perfect tonight. Usually Tim leads this, and we take turns doing things. And tonight, it's my turn to lead this. We had one last night. We had a whole bunch of people that got on and learned some things, and some of you might be repeats, and that's awesome. And so you might hear some things a little different than the way Tim described them last night, but mostly we're going to go through the same deck and talk about different things that are going on. So Pitch Perfect, this is one of the things that we offer as part of the getting ready to pitch in the micro pitch events. There's already been one micro pitch event, and we'll talk a little bit more about those and how those work, but a little bit about me. I am a communications coach. I've been working with Start Peninsula since about 2016. And we used to do these live in person, and now we're doing them, obviously, through the pandemic, we've done them online. And it turned out that doing them online was actually a little bit better because people could turn on and plug in from their living room and learn stuff and write stuff down. And some of the networking aspects don't happen on here as easily, but nonetheless, tonight's Pitch Perfect. So that's about me. I can tell you more about me if you want later on, but I'm going to be your guide through this process tonight of learning about what gets included in a 3-minute pitch. And so our agenda for tonight is that we're going to just talk about elements of the pitch, and then we're going to have some time for some questions that you all might have. Please feel free to ask questions in the chat. And my colleague tonight is Andrew. He's going to be watching from kind of in the background, and he'll be able to help us out with some stuff too. But I have the chat window up on my screen so I can see things if you have questions. And if you have questions that are going to be coming up a little bit later in the deck, then I'll let you know that. And then if I don't get to your question by the end, then please let me know and we'll have a chance to go over those. And this probably will be about 40 minutes of going through the basic elements of the pitch, just so you're familiar with it. And then when we finish with that, we can have some questions, but we also encourage you to, while we're going through the deck, to write down your sentences that you might use in your pitch. So go ahead and start creating your pitch as we go, things that strike you. And then at the end of this first elements of the pitch piece, we'll have a chance for you to try your pitch. So last time we had a few folks that mustered the courage to actually give it a try. And so I encourage you to do that. I will encourage you to do that more when we get to the end. So talk a little bit first before we get into the elements of the pitch, a little bit about Start Peninsula and the steps that go on with that. And the first thing is that you're going to attend a Pitch Perfect session, and that's this. So congratulations for being here and for giving Pitch Perfect a try. We've learned over time that the people who attend Pitch Perfect and then go on to pitch generally do much better than the folks that don't attend Pitch Perfect at all. So attending Pitch Perfect is a really, really good idea, and it really sets you up well to then be able to go and be more successful at the pitch event. So what you want to do, if this strikes your fancy, that some folks are on they just like to learn things, and that's fine too. If you're real serious about pitching, you're going to want to go to startpeninsula.com and you're going to fill out the application there to be a pitcher. So here's something to think about. The September 14th event is sold out now. It's full of pitchers, but we have another pitch event on October 12th. So that is, I believe, open for you if you want to sign up for that. But the one for September 14th is sold out. And then what you'll want to do is sign up and then obviously pitch at the micro pitch event on October 12th. You get 3 minutes. It's in front of the judges, and the winners, the top 3 winners in each of the pitch events are invited to go to the big pitch event, the final, which is in November, and it's also on Zoom. So if you want to get in on the pitch action, be sure you sign up for the October 12th event. And then once you go to the micro pitch event, you get your pitch ticket refunded. And the reason we do that is because we found that people would sign up and then they would, by taking a place in the pitch event, they really didn't have any skin in the game, and they would just at the last minute get cold feet and not show up. And so we put in the pitch that it costs them a certain amount of money to buy a ticket, and then we refund your ticket once you actually do the pitch. And so that you have skin in the game to show up. So that's really what that's all about. Some things to think about for tonight is that this is a no judgment zone. So I'm going to be sharing ideas with you, and it would be awesome if you all ask questions, if you mustered the courage at the end to actually pitch your idea. That would be a great thing. We recommend that you just leave your ego outside of the Zoom room here and realize that everybody's here to learn, and I'm here to help you. And my goal is for you to just lean into the discomfort and give it a try. So if you give it a try tonight, or begin to think about what you're going to do on October 12th, then it gets your mind going. You start thinking about things, and if you try it tonight, that's a good thing, because then that's one down on your road to success and of actually getting ready to do it. So when you go to the pitch event, the micro pitch, the judges are going to have a rubric, and that rubric or their criteria that they're judging against is each area here has 5 points for a total of 20 points per judge. And so the first item they're going to look at is your problem or opportunity. And the description there is: the pitcher clearly articulates a significant market problem or opportunity. The problem or opportunity is relatable and relevant to the market identified. Item 2, and these are on the Start Peninsula website for pitching. Item 2, solution or proposal. The pitcher clearly articulates a feasible solution that is likely to produce a sustainable and profitable venture. Item 3 is a target market. The pitcher clearly articulates the target customers and the size and characteristics of the target market. And item 4 is a piece that a lot of people forget about, and that is pitch delivery. And that is that the pitcher presents with confidence and enthusiasm and conveys a memorable message and sparks further curiosity in each of the judges. So that's the basic criteria that the judges are going to have, and it's important for you to know what those are. Again, those are on the Start Peninsula website on pitching, so you can review those as well. So let's get started. And again, be sure to ask questions tonight. This is being recorded, as you know, from the statement. And so it'll be sent out to all the attendees after the event. I think we'd usually take a day to trim things up and make sure that they're in deliverable pieces, and then we send it out to everybody. Be sure you have something to write down and take notes with. And as I said before, as we go through these various pieces of what's going to be required for a successful pitch in these 3 minutes that you have, start jotting ideas down. Just write down ideas, capture those things, and then hopefully at the end you'll be ready to come back and just give us some idea of give it a try. Yeah. So one thing about at the big event in November, there are prizes associated with that, and those are the top 3 finishers at that November final event. They get $5,000 each in seed money, and then the rest of the participants get $500 in seed money. So you want to be sure that you know that in the big one that there's some substantial things to be had. So let's get started. The first thing that's going to happen, we got 3 minutes on the clock. The timer will put those on there. You'll be in your Zoom window. We'll ask you if you're ready to go, and then you're going to go. And you probably won't be able to see these judges sitting there like they do on Shark Tank, but you'll know that they exist. And at the beginning of the pitch of the whole event, we introduce you to all of them. So you know that they're actually on the Zoom window. And even though you may not be able to see them, you know that in your heart that they're sitting there watching you, along with all the other pitchers are sitting there watching you too. So know that this is kind of freaky for people, and to realize that, in fact, these people are judging you. Much different from tonight, where we just want you to be successful and give things a try. They are judging you. The interesting thing about the judges, and we work really hard to choose judges who are really there about helping you to be successful and not about finding what's wrong with whatever you're doing. Although they may ask questions when they have their question time, which may feel a little bit like, wow, they're trying to identify things I'm not doing wrong, but they're really not. They're there to identify things that will help you to get even better as you move forward. So know that they're going to be sitting there. And when it was in person, you could actually see them, and they sat at a table, and that was kind of spooky. But so anyway, you get up and you do your thing, and it's 3 minutes, and it's the fastest 3 minutes in your life, and you finish. And then some people do this, and they turn their camera off, and they just think, oh my goodness, what just happened? I don't even know. It was 3 minutes that I'll never even remember what happened. And they don't even want to go back and look at the video because they think it was a terrible, horrible train wreck. And so some people think it was a train wreck, and some people think they were rock stars. And sometimes neither of those is the case. They just did their thing, and it's done, and there's no fixing it, and it is what it is. So we don't want you to have this reaction, and that's why we're doing Pitch Perfect, is so that you can be more confident about it and not have this reaction. So we're going to break down the 3 minutes, because what do they say? The best way to eat an elephant is one bite at a time. So we're going to break down the 3 minutes and really see what that's all about. So these 3 minutes, and these are important. If you want to take a picture of the screen, you can do that as well. If you want to do that, it'll be on the video tomorrow. But the first thing is that you want an attention getter, and that's going to be about 10 seconds. And some people think a joke is a good idea, not a good idea. And some people think asking lots of questions is a good idea, not a good idea. And some people want to tell us their name and ask us how we're doing, not a good idea. Because we really don't care what your name is until we have a reason to care. So you're going to tell us your name a little bit later, and we've introduced you by name and your company anyway at the beginning, so we kind of know who you are, but really your name isn't going to stick. So we want an attention getter, and that could be something like a startling statistic, or a quote, or something, a brief situation that you might be able to describe. Stories are hard because in this case, we only have 10 seconds. So probably a good statistic or a quote that really demonstrates, has something to do, it's relevant to your idea, solution, and thing that you're pitching. So an attention getter is critical. Sometimes the audience isn't ready to hear what your idea is until you've sparked their brains to listen to you. Because remember, you might be pitcher number 10, and the judges have heard 9 other ones. If you're pitcher number 1, you're golden. But if you're pitcher number in the back half, you're going to be, everybody's already had the ice cream and the filet mignon and the really yummy cake, and here you are. And so you got to have something that's going to really cleanse their palate and get them focused back onto what you are going to talk about, so they really can hear your great idea. Number 2 thing you want to do is you want to identify the problem or the opportunity. You have 50 seconds. 50 seconds is not a long time. So you really want to craft this so that you're gonna, you spark the audience's attention, and you get into what your problem or your opportunity is. I one time took advertising on a radio show and I bought a minute and it was $100 a minute. This was probably 20 years ago. And I would get there and what I had was 3 minutes long. And I would have to cut it down to about 55 minutes. And it wasn't, or 55 seconds. And it wasn't very much time for me to tell what I wanted to tell. So I had bought, I don't know, 10 or 20 spots on this radio show. So I had to go into their studio and do these things. And I got really good by about the third one, figuring out what 50 seconds was. And it wasn't a lot of time. And so every word mattered, every word counted. I needed to be really careful that I wasn't going too fast. It's really the Goldilocks formula, not too fast, not too slow, but just right. And so you want to spend some time on that 50-second problem opportunity. Next thing that you want to do is you want to tell them what your solution is. And you have another 50 seconds for that. So this is my problem. This is a solution we have to solve that problem. Blah, 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 blah. Then it would be a good time to say your name. My name is Gary Plaag, and I blah, 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 blah. And I got 10 seconds for that. And then I'm going to start talking about my target market. We've conducted 300 focus groups, and we've talked to each of those focus groups about the kinds of things they were looking for in this kind of a product, and blah, 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 blah. We identify our target market as people, married families, married with 2 children, who are looking for vacation opportunities for under $500 or something. And so we have this solution for that. But this is our target market. We're not looking for everybody in the world to be, and we're going to talk more about this later, but we're not looking for everybody in the world to be our client. We're looking for this specific thing that we are targeting. Next, you want to close. You got 10 seconds. And that's a bit of a reminder of what you talked about, what you need, that kind of stuff. What you need to become successful. And you really want to encourage the judges to want more, because they will then either ask you questions in the question period that will allow you to provide them with more information, because you may not be able to get all of it in, but you want to get in enough information that they're curious and they want to know more. And then that gives you your 3 minutes. So when we break it down like that, it really helps to understand what tends to happen for people who are entrepreneurs, who are going to be at this event pitching their idea. They're the technicians that have created this thing, and they tend to focus for about 2 to 2.5 minutes on their problem and a little bit on their solution, and then they're out of time. And so we want to be sure that we just really are, you can fudge these a little bit, these numbers, but this is generally the allocations that you want to use for putting your thing together. All right, let's move on to look at each of these things that we can consider in bite-sized chunks that we just talked about. And I'll provide you with various examples as we go through. So the first thing is that you have an idea and an innovation. It's some great idea that you have because you believe that there's a problem in the world that needs to be solved. And the first thing to consider about this problem in the world is that, what is the problem? And you got to tell us what it is, because the judges don't know you and they don't know your problem. And they may not come from that space where they don't really know much about that area. I know that sometimes we've had folks who do hair product or makeup or really interesting things that you wouldn't think of, but really do solve a problem that people just constantly are complaining about, but they never complain big enough. But everybody knows the irritation. And so we've seen things, people's ideas where they solve this irritation that nobody really speaks about. But when you say it, everybody in the audience goes, wow, I'm glad somebody thought of that, because that's been bugging me forever. So you want to really consider, what is the problem that I'm trying to solve? Number two, is the problem big enough to need a solution? Because sometimes it's not. And so you're solving something. I used to work in IT, and everybody wanted to automate some things. They wanted to automate everything. This is in the 80s and 90s. Let's automate everything. It's like, I don't need to automate how to use my coffee grinder. I'm happy to put the beans in the grinder and push the button. So I don't need to automate that and write a computer program for it and create some kind of crazy thing to do that. I don't need to do that. So you want to really look and say, is your problem big enough that it needs a solution that you're going to be able to provide to a big enough audience who's going to want to buy it from you? Because that's what you're really trying to do. It's not a charity, right? You're trying to actually sell something to people. And so you want to be sure it's a big enough problem. How do you differentiate yourself and your idea in the solution space for this problem? Like, this is a problem. I'm used to this problem because of these things. This is what I experience, that kind of stuff. How do you differentiate yourself in attempting to solve this problem? Next, this is a really important point. Do you really just have a great solution looking for a problem? That there's really not a problem here. And I have firsthand seen this numbers of times, that people have this really grandiose, awesome thing that is just not, it's a great solution, but there's nobody having problems about it. It's not a problem. And so no one's going to buy it, because great solution, but I don't mind pushing the button on my coffee grinder. I'm good. So just ask yourself that. What market research have you done? So I remember reading about one time about some students in a university, and they wanted to make the world's best pillow. And so somebody asked them, what kind of market research have you done about your pillow? And that, well, I talked to my mother and father, well, that's not market research. So they went down and they stood at like these pillow shops, like Bed Bath & Beyond and stuff. And they stood by the pillow rack, and everybody that came and grabbed a pillow out of the bin and was looking at the pillows, they asked them questions about what they were looking for in a pillow. And it was interesting, the demographics of the people. Young people were looking for different kind of pillows than older people. People with arthritis were looking for different kinds of pillows. People that were taller or shorter, different kind of pillows. So they knew that this was good market research. And they asked 200 or 300 people what the things were that they were trying to solve by buying a new pillow. And so they got a much better idea of what kind of pillow they should create, because they asked people. Now, one thing you're going to say is, yeah, but Gary, if I go out and do that, then people are going to know about my idea and they're going to steal it. Let me tell you, ain't nobody got time for that, because nobody wants to steal your idea, because we're going to talk about this in a second. Nobody, it's your baby. Nobody thinks your baby is prettier than you do. And so they're not going to want to go and try to take your baby. They have no interest. It's not their passion. And it's going to be hard. And unless you're committed to it, it isn't going to happen. And the chance of somebody else wanting to put that kind of work into it, probably not going to happen. So don't worry about people stealing your idea. They're probably not going to do that. And final thing here is, how much better is your solution than what's out there already? And you don't want to bash anybody else, because the environment or the community is rather small, and people will learn that you're saying bad stuff about them. You don't want to do that. You want to talk about your solution, what it does that's better and different than what's available. You don't have to identify what other things are available, but you do need to identify why yours is better, and not just better, but 10 times better. Why is it 10 times better? than what is already out there. So you're going to be a bit of a disruptor because you've really put in the time, excuse me, to think about, yeah, these are the things that make it better. This is the kind of, is it the customer service? Is it the care that we give to people? Think about places where you buy things now that you continue to go back. Why do you go back to them? Because you like the product, because it serves a certain purpose. It lasts a long time. They're happy. The customer service is great. I've bought stuff from a company and the product never showed up. And I decided, it was clear to me that somebody in the delivery system wanted that item more than I did, and it never showed up at my house. And so they sent me a new item, and, you know, really kind of no questions asked, and just said, hey, if it shows up again, you know, let us know and send it back. It never showed up. And, you know, so that I would buy more things from them, much more than the value of what the item that didn't show up. So it didn't really cost them that much. But so look for those things. How does your solution solve the problem better than anybody else? Okay, so next thing you want to talk about, which a lot of people don't want to talk about for some reason, is you want to talk about your team. Who do you have on your team behind you? Because I know that in my business, I'm not great at doing accounting because I'm not an accounting firm. But if I've got an accountant that's dynamite behind me, if I've got a financial person that's dynamite behind me, whatever, I want people to know, if I'm out telling them about my business, that their thing is going to get solved. I'm going to be there. And if I don't know how to solve it, I have a team that does know how to solve it. So when you identify your team in the pitch, you want to identify your strengths. What are the strengths that we have? Let's say you're doing some kind of really technical work. Maybe you created a chemical product that you want to sell and you want to market, and you want to let us know that the other 3 people that are in your lab, that they all have PhDs in chemical biology of some kind, and they worked for these 3 chemical companies and blah 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 blah. And so you want to identify what are the strengths that your team has. If you're doing something that's construction related, you know, I have 3 folks, 2 folks on my team are experienced contractors that have been teaching contracting at various universities for 20 years. And they are each still active in the construction market. And they are also, they're investor, or they are the 3 vice presidents on my team, whatever. What unique talents do you or your team members have? As I said, are there PhDs? Are there people with a lot of work experience? Are there people that are really good at solving problems? Have they been working in this space a long time? Identify that kind of stuff. And then why are you the person or the team to solve this problem? We are the people to solve this problem because X. We have these experiences. All right, moving on. How marketable is this product or service? And when we talk about marketing, we want to know, have you identified your customers? Who are they? Are they like the pillow people? You know, we're really focused on adults between 50 and 90 who have arthritis problems. That's really our customer. We're not trying to sell pillows to everybody, trying to sell them to these people. So identify who your customer is. Demonstrate your understanding of the size of your target market. We see the target market based on our research is 10,000 people, is 50,000 people, is 100,000 people in the United States, is 100,000 people in the United States and North America. It's whatever it is, tell us what it is, because you want the judges to ask you questions that dig deeper than these basic points. You should be able to give them this kind of information in your pitch. The next thing you want to know is how specific can I be? How directly am I focusing? As I've given you the examples, is this older adults with arthritis between age 50 and 90. You know, that's specifically who I am, who I'm after. And we see this many people. So more specific and smaller focus is better. And then finally, if you already have a viable product that you're actually selling, which some people who pitch will be doing, they actually have that, then tell us how you're delighting your customers. These are things that our customers say. We have, 98% of our customers are repeat customers. Okay, that might be good, that might be bad. Or 55% of our customers are repeat customers, and we bring in 45% are new purchases every month or whatever. And okay, what are they saying that you like about what you're giving them? Well, they really like this thing or that thing. Let us know that. Next is execution, and that is the thing that most people fail on. They just have a really hard time. Once they've got it all identified, they have a hard time buckling down and doing it, because this is where the rubber meets the road. This is the hard part. This is where it's sleepless nights. This is the sleeping in your car. This is all the stuff that entrepreneurs do to try to make it happen. And it's tough. They really have a hard time. So things to consider this for you, and this is a tough question, is how will you make this a reality? And I always think that great ideas are dreams, and they're nothing without execution. That is it a want? Is it a want to, or is it a willing to? I want to do this. The question is, are you willing to do this? And that's why this question is really powerful. What will you do to make this real? Make this a reality, to make this happen? What are you willing to commit? Because I talk to some people, they go, I say, how much money do you want to make? They go, I want to make $1 million this year. You go, okay, are you? And then I always ask, are you willing to make $1 million this year? Because that probably means you're not going on vacation and you're working every day and you can't spend nearly as much time with your family. Is that what, are you willing to do that? So what are you willing to do to make it a reality? This is an important question. Next, what makes you uniquely qualified to do this? This goes into another area that we talked about already, but what makes you uniquely qualified to do this? And we're going to talk about that in two more bullets here. The next thing is to remember is that investors invest in people and not necessarily the idea. And what do they see in people that makes them want to invest in this item, this idea, is that they see in the people a commitment. And that's why the next thing is important. You need to identify what's your why. What is the passion that you bring to this? And that goes to how will you make it a reality? You're probably going to rely on your passion. And I have a burning desire in my gut to make this happen. And I've always dreamed of this, and I'm committed, I'm ready. I'm in. And we want to know what's the thing that drives you. So one example from a guy that pitched a few years ago, and he was one of the winners in the final, I believe. And he had an app for your phone for if you had a child with autism. And if you had the app on your phone, and if you were in the grocery store, for example, and your child had a meltdown and you didn't know what to do, and you could push the app button that you were in a panic, and you would be instantly connected with someone in the network who was a trained therapist that could help walk you through how to help get your child calmed down and back into a place where he or she is able to relax and still be in public. Because a lot of people were just dragging their kid out into the parking lot and running for cover because they were embarrassed. Well, his passion was to create this app. And the reason that he created the app is because he had a child with autism. And he knew this pain. He knew this terrible experience of his child having a meltdown and then realizing I needed to find a way that parents with this same problem could have almost instantaneous help to get them out of this fix that they were in. So that's an example of your why. What is it that makes you want to do this so much? What is your why? Also a great book by Simon Sinek. You might have seen his video on YouTube. You can look at it. It's about always start with why, I think is what it's called. And it's another great idea if you want to look into that, because his idea is that why is in the middle. If you had 3 concentric circles and why is in the middle, how is around is the second ring, and the outside ring is what? And people always ask people always want to tell you what they do, and then they'll want to tell you how they do it, but they rarely tell you why they do it. And so when they learn why you do it, they're far more connected to you and interested in hearing more because they know you're passionate about it. All right, next is investability. And not everybody wants or needs an investor. And so you have to wonder, things to consider, is an investment necessary for me? For some people, it's not. And that's okay. You know, sometimes I don't need an investment. If you do need an investment, you have to tell us why you need it. If you say, I'm looking for funding, these are the things I've already done to acquire funding, and this is where I need some help. I need this. I need X amount of money to buy something to be able to provide the service. And once I can get started with, I need $5,000 to buy this thing to start the service. And if I can do that, then I have a chance. If I can't do that, I don't have a chance. Okay, well, now we know that you need some kind of investment. And then what's the money going to be used for? It's going to be used for buying this thing, or it's going to be used for, I need to hire these 3 kinds of people to do this. And that's what I'm using the money for. So just let them know what you need the money for, and that you do in fact need it. We all have some basic needs, and some of the basic needs in this area are, and why this is important. When I went off on my own in 1998, I had worked for corporate America for almost 20 years. I went off on my own. There was no help in 1998 for people who were budding entrepreneurs. It was like the wild, wild west, and you hope for the best, and you didn't die in a desert somewhere, and nobody was there to help you, including your parents. My parents said, we will not give you any money, but we will not let you starve. So if you're ever hungry, you can come home and eat. But we had our own business for 20 years, and we're not giving you money because you have to prove you can run it on your own. And then, so I was like, okay, well, I needed to tell people what I needed. And when I was contemplating leaving corporate America, which had a great salary attached to it, and to jump off this ledge. And this friend of mine told me one time, we were walking through an airport, and he said, I want you to do your dream. And I went, I'm scared about my dream. And he said, tell people what you need and they will help you. But if you don't tell them, they can't help you. If you just keep it to yourself, they can't help you. And so that's the first thing here to consider, is if you don't share what you need, people don't know how to help you. And they may not be able to give you money, but they may be able to introduce you to people. They may be able to give you an opportunity to speak at their Rotary Club or their other Kiwanis Club or whatever. They may be able to give you opportunities to share your idea. But if they don't know how to help you, they can't. So be sure to tell them how they can help you. But Gary, that's really vulnerable. If I tell people my vulnerabilities, they'll think I'm weak. I can't disagree more. Vulnerability is a strength. It is not a weakness. Tell people what you need. Tell them that you have failed 3 times in the past and you are willing to make this one work. Tell them whatever it is. I mean, be careful what you tell them. You don't have to tell them your whole bag of ick that comes along, but you do need to, if you feel like telling them, I've started 2 other companies in the past and I built them to a certain level. And this is what I learned about that because they didn't work. And I learned these things. And I need help with this piece that made the other 2 fail. Oh, okay. Now I know what you need. So vulnerability is a strength. Be willing to tell people what you need and how you need help, and they will be able to help you. Here are some tricks of the trade that come with the business. And I remember the old joke is, somebody once was in New York City, how do I get to Carnegie Hall? And the person said, practice, practice, practice. That's how you get to, thinking they wanted to play in Carnegie Hall. Well, you can't play your violin in Carnegie Hall unless you practice. So the key to success is practicing. You got to practice. And that means practicing your pitch over and over and over again, cutting words out, doing things that scary things like video recording yourself practicing. And then the video recording part isn't the scary part. The watching yourself afterward is the really scary part. And you don't have to watch it with an audience. You can watch it with your dog and by yourself. And you have your therapy pet there with you, and you can watch yourself on camera. And then and nobody else has to see it. But I really, really encourage people to video record it so that you know what other people see when you're doing your pitch. And the more that you do it and the more that you watch it, the more that you'll say, I can't believe I keep saying that. And then you'll fix things. And then when you get to the actual pitch, you'll go, you know what? I'm so confident because I already know what people see, because I've seen myself. I already know what they're seeing. I already know what my voice sounds like. I already know that I am really good at these things, and I don't have anything to worry about. And I'm eager for the judges to ask me questions so I can explain even more about my concept and my idea and what I'm doing. So practice, video record, absolutely. Talked about this before. Don't start with your name. Don't start with a question. It wastes time because you only have 10 seconds for your intro. So don't start with, how many of you have ever done whatever? Because you won't be able to see all the people on the screen anyway. And you're waiting for hands and no one's going to say anything. So just don't start with a question. Either actual or rhetorical questions. It just wastes time. Questions are great for presentations when you have more time. They're not great for this kind of a presentation. Don't start with your name because they don't care yet. We don't care till we have a reason to care. And we will have a reason to care by the time you've gotten a little bit into your pitch about what your attention getter and your problem and your solution. And then you could tell us your name if you wanted, just to remind us who you are. Delete anything that's irrelevant to your story. The problem with people who are creators of stories is that everything they create is their darling. And I have a friend who did a lot of stand-up comedy, and another friend that writes for a US senator. He's a staff speechwriter. And they both say that you have to be willing to kill your darlings because you think that all this creative stuff that you've done and you've written is just beautiful. And you don't want to scratch the pen through it because you think it's just awesome. But if it's not relevant to the story, and if it's causing things to be over time, cut it. You got to go through and do that. You have to remember also that this is a story. Notice in the last thing I said, it was a story. This is both a story and a performance. And the interesting thing about stories is that facts tell and stories sell. And when you can weave your pitch into a story, then you've got people following along. So we had one person who pitched probably 5 years, 4 or 5 years ago. And she started off and she said, like, meet Hazel. Hazel is 85 years old. And she gave us a story about Hazel having trouble getting around town as a senior. And this woman's thing was an Uber service for seniors. And she carried you through the whole story of Hazel, or whatever the lady's name was, through the whole thing. So it was a story, and you realized, and you went, oh wow, I want to help Hazel. So I want to get this Uber kind of thing. This is good. And she actually won Pitch Perfect, the pitch performance, the big final pitch contest. She won. And it's also a performance. So every time that you have a chance to get up in front of people and tell your story, it's a performance. And some people find they take exception to that with me sometimes, and they go, you mean I have to be an actor? And I say, no, you need to tell your story so that people want to listen to it. And that's the performance part. It's not just a lecture. It's not just a fact dump. It's actually a performance, and it has a thread that runs through the whole thing that tells us all about your story. Your story could be your story of your great idea, your great solution, how you're going to execute it, what your target market is, and all that can all be part of a great story. And so think about that. How can I weave this into a story? Think about this too. For every line you add, does it enhance the story or does it detract from the story? Everything I add, does it really help the story? And remember that I said earlier on that a lot of us who are technicians and we want to share our idea, we think that the nitty-gritty stuff in the technical part is the most interesting. And we can't spend all of our time there. We have to spend our time in all three categories that the judges are looking for, the problem, opportunity, solution, and target market, and how you're going to execute it. We got to spend time in there. We can't just spend time in the problem and identifying all the technical details, because you'll have another chance. Also remember that this is a rule that I always used whenever I explained things to people when I was in IT about what I did. I always had to explain it so it passed the mom test, because my mother had absolutely no idea what I did in IT. And so I had to make sure it was something that my mother would understand. So it's a good rule that I like to follow. People ask me in my business, what is it that you do? And I tell them first why I do it. And then I tell them the what I do part is that the easiest way to explain that to them is that I help people to get out of their way and be confident in telling their story. And so they go, oh, do you have an example? And then I can give them an example. But that really easy thing that passes the mom test. And another thing that I learned when I was in grad school, one of my advisors, she did a lot of research on explanatory skills, how you explain things to people. And she had a 4-word reminder that I thought was great, and I still use it. And she said, clarifying explanations anticipate confusion. So when you're creating an explanation that clarifies things for people, before you even create it, anticipate where they might get confused, and then adjust your explanation accordingly. So those are some things that may help you as well, that I've learned over the course of doing this. So that concludes our formal instruction, and happy to answer any questions that you have, and talk about, maybe let some folks, I'll leave this up if you want to copy things or take a picture of it. If you want to reach out to me or Tim, we're happy to work through with you and talk to you. And if you want to practice with us, we're often eager to help you to do that if it fits in our schedules, and can learn more about Start Peninsula at the website and on Facebook. So I guess open up for, I'm going to stop sharing here so that I can just see everybody. I'll give you one more second here just to take a picture, and I'll stop sharing it.